Frank Ocean has always been a cryptic character within the music industry. He's a person who steers clear of the limelight and communicates mostly via his Tumblr account. Having released 4 bodies of work in 8 years, he has a smaller yet as powerful or greater resume relative to his peers. One of his less appreciated works was Endless. Released in 2016 only as a video and only on Apple Music, it was overshadowed for a lot of people by the neighbouring release of Blond, a more melodic and upbeat album with a clearer structure that was available on multiple platforms. Endless was in fact one of the more important releases and was also re-released by Frank in 2018 in limited quantities as a physical format album. It featured people such as James Blake and Sampha, both recipients of the highly esteemed Mercury Prize, and both strong advocates of using synthesizers and piano. It also features Johnny Greenwood of Radiohead, the London Contemporary Orchestra, and Nico Siegel, just to name a few. The mysterious and sudden 2016 visual release in itself brings up a few interesting tropes. You see multiple manifestations of Frank building what appears to be a spiral staircase, all within a black and white aesthetic. As stated by Roger Deakins, the legendary cinematographer, black and white can be used as a powerful tool. He says black and white focuses you on the content and the story, and it really concentrates your attention on what's in the frame. All too often, colour can be a distraction. It's easier to make colour look good, but harder to make colour service the story. Black and white imagery is much more about the balance between the light and the shade in the frame, and I think it can help convey story points a lot better with fewer distractions. Transferring this analysis to Endless, it's a way of Francisco Soriano, the director of photography, telling us to focus on the components, the process, and Frank himself by making them have darker shades on the spectrum, while having the warehouse with a lighter aesthetic. The aspect of the spiral staircase is something that has been utilized in media for some time as well. For example, in Sofia Coppola's debut film, Virgin Suicides, a pivotal element of the film is that the Lisbon family have a house with a central staircase. It's used to represent uncertainty in the characters' journeys each time they use it, that their path has no clear view, as well as a lack of visibility of the end or any intermediary stops. Therefore, one possible interpretation of the staircase in Endless is that just like how Frank is building the staircase, that no matter who we are or what we personally build in life, that the journey in itself is complex, and that the final outcome or ending is something nearly impossible to observe or predict. In an interview with Pitchfork, Tom Sachs, a contemporary artist who worked with Frank on Endless, tells us that the unedited staircase building film was 140 hours long. But he also has an interesting take, that the staircase is about transparency for Frank, both as a person and through his music. He explains this is clear in the video due to the fact that we, as viewers, can see each plywood element of the structure, but we also get to see the many individual processes that go into building the staircase in itself. In one of the many comic strips of Calvin and Hobbes written by Bill Watterson, an apt comparison can be drawn to Endless. The comics involve a kid, Calvin, who dreams fantastical situations along with believing as if his stuffed toy tiger, Hobbes, is real. In one scene, Calvin imagines a cardboard box can be used as a duplicator for anything, so he decides to duplicate himself. This has disastrous results, as each clone has an independent thought process to the others, causing a disjoint. Bill Watterson likely used this to explain how a young kid's mind can often be chaotic. In contrast, the clones of Frank that come into frame and leave autonomously appear to be building in harmony with little interaction, as if connected mentally by one purpose. It's a potential way of Frank trying to represent his mind, all fragmented with different actions, but working to generate a single body of work, and also trying to say that he's focused on his craft of making music. The remastered version of Endless brought an end to the unofficial MP3 album cut that had been circulating the internet up to that point, and it also gave us a cleaner mix with some modified transitions and endings. Some songs are purely experimental in nature, but it's also an album with heavy electronic elements and, like Blond, constantly changing instrumentation. Endless as a musical project covers a range of themes. These involve intimate moments in Frank's own life, both growing up and in recent years, as well as covering more broad and debated topics. It's a body of work suited for introspection and will take more than one listen to fully digest its content. Even though this can be difficult to hear on a first listen due to Frank's heavy use of vocal effects, the album has a strong and varied lyrical base. Frank as a musician tends to generate stories in an enigmatic manner, often voicing himself literally and at other times through metaphors. Furthermore, topics are often brought up at random. On Alabama, he begins to mention his origins in New Orleans. As a 5-year-old, he moved there as a child. Then on Unity, he expands this with a reference to the Iberville projects, the low-income housing area where he stayed. He then compares Iberville along with Chicago to both Iraq, which has been in civil war since 2014, and Palestine, a country ridden with border disputes and violence. These lines were likely used to highlight the large levels of crime and discrimination Chicago has had in the past 2 decades. And furthermore, compare this to the traumatic events he personally experienced as a child and teenager in New Orleans. Within Unity, he leans into a brief spiritual context by mentioning ayahuasca, a drink intended to cause a spiritual awakening made by the tribespeople of the Amazon. On Higgs, he has a metaphorical statement. What if we decide to live by choice? It's a statement that questions our purpose. How would our life be different if we chose not to be affected by external thoughts and influences? If everything we did in life was purely from our own will instead of being shaped by those around us? It has parallels with the book The Paradox of Choice, which studies how happiness is affected by the success or failure of achieving goals that we set. And it also covers how the modern overabundance of choice can lead to a lack of fulfillment. Higgs as a song is where Frank reminisces of a past romance that he still cherishes to this day. On the bridge, he speaks of how his development into adulthood made him more mature and capable of that relationship. And he also admits they did the best they could if their fate was predetermined. The title of the song is mentioned in the refrain. It's a potential reference to the Higgs field, which uses the Higgs boson particle to allow certain subatomic particles to have a mass. One possible interpretation is Frank could be trying to say that their relationship was a part of a bigger picture and could enable things to happen beyond what either of them could achieve individually. What these things could be is for the listener to imagine. Rushes as a song represents the physical and emotional highs and lows he personally experienced in the past, again linking to a previous romance. It plays on the concept that the speed of life is often perceived to be quick, that a powerful event can slow it down and have a lasting impact on the individual and give them a rush. Frank in the song gives examples of such rushes he had through atmosphere, intimacy, and emotion. Wither goes over the topic of growing anew. and building a foundation for future generations via imagery of nature. He has a hopeful attitude in the song that he can one day have children of his own who see him at his peak, as well as when he's deteriorating, to give them a perspective about the reality of progression in life, and to also pass on the knowledge that he himself gained through his own experiences. That analysis just scratches the surface of what Frank Ocean could be trying to explain on Endless, but also demonstrates his awareness and the depth of his creativity. The abstract nature of the songs leave their meaning open to interpretation. Endless is more of a memory vault for Frank than his traditional bodies of work, but it's also an opportunity for the listener to immerse themselves in their own memories that they cherish. Sit in a calm environment, free from distractions. Close your eyes and let Endless play. You might never know what you'll feel, or were capable of dreaming of. That's the beauty of Frank Ocean's Endless.